Cyndy McDonald, and many of you know me, and I know many of you. I've been looking at your registrations if you signed up for this open forum today. Guided Path is hosting an open forum so we can talk about managing your practice and managing your counseling with your students and your families. And we are all in uncharted territory. None of us have ever experienced something so global, so detrimental, just so impactful in our lives. So we're all navigating this together, and I'm very thrilled and a little intimidated that we have so many people who are interested and concerned about how is this impacting our students and our families, our own lives, the lives of our students and the families we work with. And that's why we wanted to host this forum today. We had almost 200 people express interest. And so that is very exciting, but I just want to share that I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers, but together, I believe we can do so much and have such an impact. There has never been a time in our society or in our profession where there has been a greater need for counselors and advisors and people to work and support students and their families. And as we talked about in last week's webinar, finding calm amid the chaos, that's the role that we have to play. And so in any way that we can help you find that as a professional, that's what we're here to do. So thank you for joining us and being here. As we have a large number of people, we're not going to be able to do just a completely open forum. That might be a little difficult. But what we've done is we've asked people to submit their questions, and we've got those, and I've created some polls. So I want to take the temperature of how you're doing with your working with your students. This is based on the responses that I received through emails and through our shared forum. So let's get an understanding of kind of where we're at and what we're facing as we work with our students and our families. I have with me team members, Jennifer Smith and Andrea Lindquist. You are able to put in a question under the question and answer section, and then you're actually able to vote on different questions. So if multiple people have the same question, you can vote it and it'll raise up in the queue. So we're going to spend the next 60 minutes together, working together. I know there are some experts and people who have far more expertise than I do that are on this forum. So if you have some comments or thoughts about the topics that we're talking about, please feel free to enter those into the question and answer section as well, because we will also be going through those. And if we don't have time to address the questions in this session today, we'll be able to put them together and most likely post it as a blog. And of course, as always, we'll send you links to the blog and to the recording. So I hope that sounds good to you. And I'm just very humbled and honored to have you join us here today on this Friday morning. As a check-in, first of all, I just want to say I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying healthy. I hope you're social distancing. I hope that's going well for you. It certainly is a challenge, to be put in this situation. We all are facing those challenges. And, prayers and thoughts go out to everyone that's dealing with the COVID-19 and all the various ways. So that is all of ours. Primary concern is health and safety of our families, our students, and those we work with. So let's get started. And I'm going to launch some polls because I felt like taking your comments and having you see kind of where everybody's at and what we're all dealing with. I've found by doing polls in the past, that has been a great way to communicate and be able to understand where people are. All right, so let's go from there. So I'm going to launch the polls, and you'll see that on your screen. And this is about like, who are we? You know, who's here? What kind of experience do you have? How many people are in your office? So there's answer these 5 questions. And I know it'll take a little bit of time. And think about, you know, what you're, you know, if you're working in an office, if you're working at a school, because we have a number of people who join us, you know, that are schools, public, private, nonprofit organizations. This is affecting our whole counseling profession. And as you look at these, also, I teach for UCLA, and you know, I find that the participants in my UCLA class come from a lot of different backgrounds and experiences, and it's always very educational and inspiring to meet them and see how they interact with students. And we have a class starting in March, and see how they're doing. So looks like we're about 75% there. So keep looking and thinking, how does this connect to who I am and what I do? A few more. If you haven't answered, take a, and if you're trying to look at this, I'm sure many of you are looking at this at your phones, on your iPads. You know, that can always, technology right now can be quite a challenge. All right, looks like we've got 85%. I'm going to give you just a couple more moments, those of you that are still maybe trying to get things set up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to end it. We've got 92% people. So you should, I'm going to share the results. So you should be seeing this on your screen. How many years have you been advising? It looks like a majority participating today have been in the 5 to 9 year range. And if you add that to the 2 to 4 years, you know, that's over, well over 40%. Welcome to those of you, the 3 of you that are just starting. We're so glad to have you. And I know I have several people who've had many years of experience in the 15 plus years. So these are your experts. These are your sages to go to when you have questions. And that's why none of us have all the answers. We're in all this together, but we have many people that you can go to. So how many people are in your office? It looks like 62%, over 50 people. We're in a single office by ourselves. And as you can see, we all work in different environments. I am in what works as a game room and an office. So you can see the PS4 equipment behind me, and you know, we're all doing multi-duty. And this is a great way for us to connect and work together is through these kind of mediums, especially when you're in an office by yourself. And so it looks like 1 to 2 to 3 to 5. We have a few people that are at the 6 to 10 and the 10 plus. So again, this shows the range and the impact that this is having on with those larger organizations, have you had experience working virtually with your colleagues? You know, I know many organizations do that, have people throughout the world that they connect with. And so that's an important thing to consider. Where are your students located? It looks like 87% of us, majority in the US. Some people mostly are international, and then we have some that are both US and international. And I think that, you know, that mix is starting to change, and more people are picking up both international and US students. And this is an opportunity as we go through this experience, and we're being forced to do things virtually. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, that we can see that as an opportunity and maybe expand on that. So that's very helpful to know. All right. This is the kind of thing we're all wondering. What did we do before? And now what are we doing? What are other people doing? And how is that affecting us? So before the COVID-19 crisis, how is your counseling with students set up? Very few of us, 7%, 6 people, do it all online. So it's business as usual. You've got a process, you've got systems, you've got protocols, you've got all that set up. So you can be the mentors for all of the rest of us. Many of us are, you know, have some virtual between, you know, that's around 30%, between 30 and 50%. Some do some, and most people, you know, 49% have been focused on the in-person. And so now you're being forced out of your comfort zone. And how do you do this? And that's what we're here to do and talk about. So who are you? What is your role? We have some people in a public school setting. We have some in a private school setting. I know we have people in a nonprofit, and a majority of you are in a private practice. I know in our newsletter, we have a lot of people who are in educational organizations, you know, departments of education, office of education, things like that. But obviously right now they're a little busy, so they haven't joined us today. That's very understandable. So that gives you an understanding of who we are, kind of what we've been doing, and what we're doing now. So let's go to, I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to go to the next poll, and we're going to talk about your seniors. How are they feeling? And then this is one of those topics that we're all just, you know, this is unprecedented for our students. Okay. So I'm going to launch a poll about your seniors, and I want to thank those of you who submitted questions. I pulled some of these from the questions you submitted. So thank you for posing questions and giving us the opportunity to address them. So these are about your, there's just a couple of questions, 3 questions, let's see, on this, about your seniors and how they're feeling. So where are your seniors at? In the different parts of the country, I'm in California. I reside in Central California. I know I have a lot of colleagues that are here. Our admissions times are much later. So many of my students are still waiting to hear from especially the UCs. So their angst and such is going to really start kicking in, you know, starting next week. And I'll share a little bit about what I'm planning to do, and we would love to hear what others are doing. So I'll give you a moment to think about, where are your seniors? Where are they at? Have they heard from all their schools? And the question was about those that are not ED. So if you have a majority of your students do ED, you know, they may have already, they heard and they've already, that's a done deal. But maybe this is up to, you know, this might be changing their mind. It might be affecting them. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So Oh, it looks like we do have. Looks like Tammy's just joined us from her school district. So we're glad to have you. If you're just joining us, we're doing a poll. So join us in the poll. And yes, we are recording this webinar, and we will have sent links out to the recording afterwards so that you can share it with others if you'd like. So it looks like we're getting good progress on this. We've got 80% voted. If you haven't voted yet, now is your opportunity. I feel like an auctioneer. It's going, keep going. So it'll be gone. Okay. And think about how your students reaching out to you. Are you having to reach out to them? You know, how are you hearing? Okay. All right. Well, looks like we've got 87% who have voted. I'm going to give you count to 5 if you haven't voted yet. Now is your opportunity. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So now let's share the results here. What is the status of our seniors? So the first question is, please fill in the blank. Percent of my seniors have received admissions decisions from colleges. 43% of you said, yes, my students have received their admissions. 45%, well, they're getting close. 1% is the 50 to 69%, and nobody's in the less than 50%. And I'm in the last category. I've not heard from all my seniors. So that's one of the things is, you know, a lot of this is some colleges have said their admissions decisions are going to be delayed because there's nobody in the offices. So that's an important aspect to consider. And this is, you know, it's international, you know, throughout the world. These are all issues that are coming up. Of your seniors that have received admissions decisions, how comfortable are they? And this was a question that was posed. How comfortable are they deciding which college to enroll without visiting the campus? All the college campus visits have been canceled. And I'm going to share, we have a blog that we've posted, and I will share that with you. And it has a list of the different the number of colleges that have canceled. It's well over 800. So going to college campus right now is not in the picture. So 13%, they're mostly fine with it. People aren't happy, but given the circumstances, that's mostly where our students are. Many are upset. How can they make a decision if they can't visit the campus? So then the next question becomes are they considering doing a gap year? Are they reconsidering their decisions? And then I see we've got some that are other. In this polls, when I have put the other, please feel free to add in the question section what that other is so that we can share and we can see what some other things that are coming up and that you're dealing with and your students are dealing with. So please feel free to do that in the questions. So number 3, in terms of their college admissions decisions right now, my seniors are most worried about, and you can pick more than one, whether or not they'll be able to graduate. You know, this is something they've looked forward to for years. Even our college students, graduate students, they're all dealing with this. I saw one of my students who is graduating from UC Irvine. She wrote in a post that, you know, I was having all these last moments, my last time to go do this, you know, go to the student union, my last time to attend a game, my last time to do this. And all of a sudden, all of those have been just taken away, and I can't even go to the campus. So there's a lot of grieving and a lot of loss from that. So that's a definite real implication that our students are dealing with. What dates they need to make an enrollment decision by, we can talk about that. How will they afford college next year? You know, millions of people have now been laid off work, their businesses have been impacted, the stock market has crashed. You know, what they thought they could afford a week ago, 2 weeks ago, may be very different in the fall. And this is another area where we may need to provide some support. How will they get transcripts sent to colleges? Very real. Our school district still does paper transcripts. And if they don't go back to school, I don't know how my students are going to get transcripts. So those are all big issues that I know the school districts are working on. The good news is that they are aware of it too. And I know that those are issues that they want to empower and facilitate for students. So if you're in a school district and you're grappling with that, maybe you have some things you can share and ideas and things that are being discussed. How to reach admissions office. But the big thing is how to make that enrollment decision without visiting the campus. And we've talked about that last week in our webinar, you know, the virtual visits, you know, through UVisit or through the colleges themselves have a lot of virtual tours and things like that. We got an email, and I'm sure you've gotten many emails from colleges that say, here's what we're offering to our students. You know, we're doing FaceTimes and connect through FaceGroup and, you know, YouTube and things like that. That's a huge consideration. How to find scholarships for next year. This is the prime scholarship time. Students would be having scholarship nights. They'd be going into their counseling offices and, you know, getting the scholarships. They'd be getting emails from school. And now none of that is, well, I shouldn't say none of that, but that's going to be curtailed and on a case-by-case basis. So those are big, important things. And then other aspects as well. So I'm going to pause right here and see what questions do you have about these particular things that are shared about seniors and how you're helping your seniors to deal with this. And then we have another poll about juniors, and then we're going to talk about marketing and, you know, and our own practices. So if we have any questions, Jen, do we have any questions that we should look at right now?
Thus far, a lot of them are about marketing or business practices and or I guess somewhat related to seniors, you know, kind of advising families on how to pick schools in terms of like changing scholarship information. So students who were receiving financial aid packages may now need different types of financial aid packages. And so where to start advising them on the appeal process for financial aid.
And I think, and that's an excellent question. And it's one that's going to come up more and more because in the past, a lot of families who would not necessarily need to, they may have been full pay before, and now they're worried that they won't be. So they wouldn't have been worried about the full financial aid. So they may not have even filed, you know, the financial aid forms or anything of that nature. So that's one of the things that we can do is help them file them. They can go in and change the FAFSA if a parent's been laid off of work or, you know, their assets have diminished. They can go in right now and you can advise them. This is a great opportunity to reach out to your families and say, here's what you can do. And they can change the FAFSA at any time. And then the colleges will be able to upload that. And working with families to do appeal letters, I think is going to be crucial this year. You know, we're hoping colleges will be back in session in the fall. Nobody has, you know, a concrete answer. We won't have a concrete answer on that for a while, but getting the balls rolling right now would be a really good idea. And I also know I've seen several colleges, there are some that don't do appeals. They won't take appeals on financial aid, but in this circumstance, they will ease that policy probably at least for the next year, maybe, an undetermined amount of time in the future. So even if a college has said, no, we don't do appeals, I would still try to appeal. And, reaching out to the offices may be a little difficult at this point. Still beneficial to do that, but I wouldn't let that hold you up. I would go ahead and help families put together appeal letters and documentation so that when the colleges are ready, you've got everything ready to go. And so that's one of the greatest resources and ways that you can really support families right now, because we are going to have a lot of, and we still don't know what all the outcomes going to be. And, with the new aid package that was just passed literally this morning, what implications that going to have. Student loans have been put on hold. What does that mean? So there's just so many balls that are changing. So our seniors are uncertain. They don't know what's going on. Their parents don't know what's going to happen. And we just need to reassure them. So that goes into some of the marketing and communications and things like that. So let's look at our juniors, because that's where a lot of us are feeling like there's no tests and the AP exams are changing and all these things. So what are your juniors? What are you hearing and what are you feeling as a counselor are the most pressing for your juniors? I'm going to launch this poll. So all right. So there's a couple of, I think this is the one, there's just one question. How are your younger students? Mostly juniors, but even freshmen, sophomore. What are they most concerned about? Are they worried, will I even get to go to college? Will I even get to go to high school next year? It's such an uncharted territory. Looks like we've got 70%. So think about it as you've talked to your students and your families. Some of them are still processing. Some of them are still trying to figure out, their home situation, let alone college. Some of us are still processing and trying to figure out our situations. And what are we going to do? And how are we going to manage? So I can see a common theme emerging. You'll see it too when I finish polling. So please add your vote. We're up to 80%. Okay. All right, we're up to 85%. So now or never. I'm going to give the count of 5, and then I'm going to close the polling. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, let me share. And I think one of the benefits, and I will be sending these results out to you as well, is that you'll be able to share this with your students and your families. We're not alone in this. We're all working on this, same goals and dealing with these circumstances, and there is comfort in knowing I'm not the only one. So what are your younger students most concerned about now with the college planning? They're not too worried about being able to apply to college. They realize that will come. That's a next year thing. But they are concerned about their AP. I mean, many of them are ready and preparing to take AP. They've been doing study groups all year long. I know we have several test prep professionals on the call. And if you have any insights or things you want to share through the question and answer, please feel free to do that. We'd love to get your input, but having AP and IB tests count, how are they going to count? Are the colleges going to count them? Will they count full? Will they count partial? Those are all very unanswered questions, very legitimate questions. Will I get a chance with colleges? Can I go? Will I be able to go next fall and do those college visits? Am I going to be able to do college visits this summer? A lot of times, especially for nonprofit groups or different service organizations, they'll have big college visits. We have one that I work with here in Central California. They're probably not going to be able to go. So how do you manage that? And what does that look like? Will I get to go back to school? Will admissions deadlines be changed due to COVID-19? Looks like that's not as big of a concern. I've seen questions, are ED and EA dates going to be pushed back? I think a lot of it depends on what happens through the summer and when people go back to school. Our public schools and private schools start up earlier since they closed, in basically March this year. If they don't go back to the fall, will they go back earlier? Those are kinds of things. But the number one question you can see on your screen is, what about the SAT or the ACT? Right now, they're saying the SAT is going to be hosted in June. And both for SAT and ACT. I am not a betting person, but I will be shocked if that date sticks. So if we'll see, it would be nice, but if it doesn't, then what's the next plan? And I don't know that ACT and SAT have really addressed that yet. So that's the huge concern for our students, and one that many people are addressing. So that's, big issues for our juniors and ourselves. So, all right, I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to turn back to Jennifer to see how our questions are and see if there are any questions about the juniors or other items that I should answer before going into the next poll.
Yes, so there are quite a few questions about juniors, and a lot of them, or several of them, revolve around testing,
Okay.
as in wondering if the colleges will be changing their admission requirements. Will more schools go test optional? Will they require different tests or fewer tests, no longer requiring subject tests, or maybe now requiring, other types of exams like AP instead of SAT. And then also related to those test optional kinds of ideas, how do you advise students in terms of making a well-rounded list if there aren't as many test guidelines to determine whether or not those schools are a reach or more of a target or a sure thing or likely school? And then the same with kind of advising students around scholarships, which often are typically based on test scores, wondering how scholarships will change as well. So lots of questions about tests.
Oh yeah. It's such a volatile subject, and it's such a present subject, right, for all of our students, but especially the juniors. And I think what we can do as advisors is first of all, is just stay up to date. We just had test optional day. John Beckenstadt declared, was it Wednesday, I believe, was the declare yourself test optional. University of Oregon did. I saw news came out that Tufts University is going to try a 3-year pilot with going test optional. MIT just announced, and I haven't read the details, some of you probably already know the details around this, but they're no longer requiring SAT subject tests. I'm presuming they're going to take more of an approach like the University of California system does. It's like highly recommended, but not required. But I think we are going to see a lot of relaxation of the testing. Case Western came out and said we're waiving SAT and ACTs for students. So week by week, these are going to change. And most of all, and what our students and parents need to know and what we need to do is oftentimes too is like the colleges, they need students, first of all. So they're going to do whatever they need to be able to still create a class and bring in a diverse class and fulfill their admissions requirements. So they are going to be flexible, at least for the next year, the foreseeable future. So just sharing those kinds of messages that say, we're all in this together. The colleges are dealing with all of this too, is really going to be key. So that's another part of it as well. And so that's, that's because it can change day by day. So I expect we're going to see a lot of it. In fact, my next poll is on predicted admissions outcomes. So let's see, I'm going to see what everybody else thinks as well. But I do think we're going to see a lot of changes. And the financial aid, I don't think that's really been hasn't come to the top yet, but it will. And so, looking for scholarships and those SAT and ACT scores that are geared drive scholarships, maybe they'll go with your PSAT scores or your latest scores or things like that. So I think flexibility is going to have to be our middle name, as we move forward. Okay, I see a question that just came up. Michelle says, how can you change the FAFSA when it is based on past taxes, not current financial situation? It's based on your, prior income. So you're putting in 2018 income, but it's based on a window of assets of where you're at right now. So if your assets have changed, you can go into the FAFSA and change it. And then there's using professional judgment. This is where an appeal, you can write the college and say, our income has dropped from X to Z, and here's where we're going to be. And the colleges have that prerogative to use professional judgment to adjust using your FAFSA, but they have to change your income. You're right about that, but you can put in and change assets. And if a parent's lost a job, things like that, you write that and send that to the admissions office. So yeah, lots of great questions, lots of uncertainty. So let's talk about those predicted admissions outcomes. So I'm going to launch this and let's see what you guys think. I told you a little bit about what I think, but let's see what we all feel. So here's our predicted admissions outcomes. I've got a few questions here. Do you expect to see more colleges extend the May 1 deposit deadline? What are your thoughts on that? What are you hearing? Do you expect to see more colleges relax admission testing requirements? And this is where those of you who have years of experience, I've been in an admissions office, your knowledge, expertise is so valuable. And, perspectives just add. We're all going to help each other and support each other. And that's why I am facilitating this conversation. But I do not have any magic ball or any of the answers. But I am very honored to be able to facilitate the discussion and get, connect to all of you in this time that we're all dealing with. So think about, what do you think? I mean, what do you predict will happen? We've got 82%. There's 3 questions. Put in your vote. They're yes, no, or maybe. Very simple. What are your thoughts? Your first impression is just fine. And we'll take a poll again, in a week, and things will have changed, and we'll probably see things change again. So one of the questions we had received as we set up this forum is, can we do this on a regular basis? So we'll look into that and see how beneficial that would be, and we've got some ideas on how that might be helpful for you. All right, we've got 90% voted. I'm going to give a count to 5 if you haven't voted yet. You've got through, I'm going to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right, so let me share the results. Do you expect to see more colleges extend the May 1 deposit deadline? 80% of us say yes. Yeah, colleges, they need students, and they can't require students to have deposits in when they may not have heard, or their offices, no one's in their office, or any number of things. So no one thinks that they're not, but maybe. But pretty much we're in agreement. Yeah, we expect to see more colleges extend the May 1 deposit deadline. And I know the UK, I was looking at the UCAS, and they had put something out and then had come back and modified that in terms of conditional admissions and unconditional admissions. If anybody wants to talk about that, then let's talk. Let us know. And you can put that in question. So I see Kathy has said something about this is a time when Justice Department decree went into effect and already weakened the May 1 deadline. And that is very true. With the NACAC having to rescind parts of the, CEPP, the professional practices, and basically not enforce the May 1, universal May 1 reply date, that had already been weakened and challenged. And so this is just further thrown it, out the window. And so we're probably going to be seeing colleges having, even now, we have colleges that have deadlines, May 1, June, July, and it's going to create such a domino effect. So one of the questions I did not put on here, but that would be a good question to think about, is this going to increase the number of students who are put on wait lists? We saw in the very beginning, a lot of students have already heard, but many students are still waiting. And so if they get put on a wait list, how realistic is that? They're going to be pulling from the wait list probably until school starts for many more colleges than have in the past. So we do expect them to expand that, and absolutely it has been in fact impacted by the NACAC issue. So I want to share, Kathy, what you said here, that I'm leaning toward advising students to not notify their other colleges of withdrawing their applications after deposits. This leaves some flexibility. Yeah, and it's a whole nother question too about double deposit. We had this discussion the other day, and yeah, we have to look at some of our practices and how to help our students. So there's a lot of things going on regardless of the COVID-19. Do you expect to see more colleges relax admissions testings? So you can take this number back. One of the most beneficial things of being in a webinar, hearing other voices, is it's not your voice. It's somebody else that's saying, relax, this is going to be okay. 83% of us say colleges are going to relax their admissions testing requirements. And we'll all keep track, we'll all keep aware, but for colleges to hold fast to all their requirements is just not, it's not beneficial for both sides of the desk. So let people know, yes, it's, take a breath, it's going to be okay. In fact, you're not able to take your test in March, you'll be able to move forward. Do you expect to see more colleges relax AP SAT subjects or IB requirements, because those are a little different. And again, 81% of us say, yes, we expect to see that. I'm like, I don't know, some are pretty stringent and maybe. And I think a lot of it may be that maybe, and a lot of it depends on how long this goes and, and how, far the consequences. Like, it's sad that the whole world has just been enveloped in this whole pandemic, and the United States just surpassed all other countries in the number of cases. And I'm sitting here in California, and I have colleagues in New York and Washington. It looks like Louisiana is going to be one of the next epicenters. And we've had colleagues in other countries that have already experienced this, in China and Italy and other places. I left England literally less than a week before all of this came down. So being there and watching it happen while it was going on in Italy and other countries, Iran, was very surreal. So do we expect more colleges to relax AP and SAT subject? Yeah, probably. So that's the good news. And that's the thing that we have no control over, zip. But we do have control over the messaging and how to bring calm. Use these numbers. Let your students and families know it'll be okay. Colleges are not going to disadvantage you. And in terms of putting together lists, use students' pass scores, AP scores, PSAT scores, use their grades, use a combination, and just be flexible. This is the list for now. It may change. And I think the whole next year, even 18 months the story is going to be flexibility. All right. I am going to switch, and we're going to talk a little bit about our own practice and our own selves. But before I do that, I'm going to turn to Jen and see if there are any other questions you think I should address before we switch gears a little bit and talk about marketing and communication. Okay.
There are a lot of questions, and unfortunately, like you said, we're not going to be able to get to all of them. But one big question, back to tests, in terms of counseling juniors on, again, building that well-rounded list, how do you do that without test scores?
I think this is where I would use PSAT scores. Most of the students should have some kind of, even if they have, standardized test scores, but most of them are going to have PSAT scores or some kind of measurement that you can use. Use a GPA, and that's why in Guided Path we have a way where you can sort by GPA. And, use some of your knowledge, expertise of the high school profile. Where does the student go? What kind of curriculum? How much is the rigor of the curriculum that they have? Are they in all AP and IB, community college classes, or, not as competitive? So use those kind of gauges. And that's where our expertise as counselors and as advisors comes in, is to try and use that. Their college list may be a little longer this year than they have in the past, because you're trying to gauge those things. But you can use the guided search, especially in Guided Path, or any other program that you're using, to find those parameters and look at. And I always look one above and one below. So if I have a student that's got 620 on the reading of their SAT, well, then I'm going to look at one level above and one level below, so that I can find their reach and I can find their foundation schools. So you can still apply those principles in your work as you work with your juniors and all. And then, the great thing about this, and the great opportunity this gives, is it gives you an opportunity to tell your students to do more research. Then they can look at the different offerings, the different majors, the different courses, use the opportunity to use surveys, in other instruments. And you've got Coursava cards. We've got several surveys and guided path that you can use science, any ones, Myers-Briggs, whatever it is you use, then use that to help drive your decisions about putting together college lists and making recommendations. And that's where, having that flexibility and having it be where, well, we'll put on this list for interested right now. And then you can decide, do your research and see what you want to use for your list. So there's a lot of flexibility, but this also gives you an opportunity, I think, in your own practice. What else can I use? What have I wanted to use and implemented, but haven't had time? One of the conferences I was going to be doing a session on using surveys, and Steve Antonoff, Dr. Antonoff, and I had done this before, and I use surveys a lot in my practice, and I know many of you do too. So are there things that you wanted to implement that you haven't had a chance yet? And use some of those. You may be surprised at how that can help you build some lists, things like that. So let's do our last one, and then we'll leave enough time, leave a little bit more time for questions. So I saw the comment about move through quick and let's get to questions. So I know that's what you guys want. All right. So I'm going to launch this. I'll only keep it open a short period of time, but this is marketing and communication. So before COVID-19, what did you do? And after COVID-19, what did you do? I'm going to give you a minute to go through this. I'll give you a little bit more on that because there's 6 questions. So think about how your practice is now, and how it's going to be changing. And what are you thinking of? And this is where we can help each other. So we've got how do you talk to students? Do you email them? Do you call them? Do you text them? Do you reach out to them through Facebook or TikTok or Instagram? What is your preferred methods of communication? What was your comfort level? I got a lot of questions about, like, how do we do things now? And maybe it's not my comfort level, but what'll be most effective? So we want to see what you have found to be most effective. So we've got 62%. Talking about marketing. And that can apply to schools, nonprofit groups, as well as independents. And what are you thinking about? What do you want to try? Okay, I need at least 2 more people to answer, so we get up to 80%. That way we have a good representation. Okay, thank you. 2 more people. Now we're at 80%. All right, so I'm going to end the poll and give you a count to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. So let me share the results so you guys can see, and I'll just focus on the reds, then that'll give us more time to go into the questions. So before COVID-19, what were your preferred methods of communication with students? Choose from different ones. 71% was email. And yet we all complain about how students don't read email, but yet that's our preferred method because that's our way of delivering the most information. Phone calls, text, 60%, very close. Social media, a little bit. All of the above. Many people use multiple service, resources. I do. I call them, I text them, I email them, and I do their parents. So usually it takes quite a few things. And if you have other things, put those in the question and answer. I'd love to hear what some other things that you're doing. So before COVID-19, what your preferred methods with parents? Parents' email is a little more safe. They're in many ways, they're our clients, so they're more inclined to read the email. They're more familiar. They work with email. Phone calls are a good second, text, social media, all of the above. So email is like the leading thing. But now, let's go back to preferring marketing channels. Referrals is by far the biggest way of marketing and getting new clients. And those of you that are just starting out or have newer practices, you're still building up to that. So then what are your options? 16% are saying, well, through my community speaking workshops. Well, that's why the next question. So website, social media, paid marketing. Very few people do paid marketing. Understandably so. It's often not as cost effective as many other things. Nobody's doing online webinars or recorded events. So how about with COVID-19, what new marketing channels are you considering? Updating the website. And people are starting to think about paid marketing. Sending out more emails. Using more social media. Recording. So nobody was doing it before. Now people are starting to think about it. I know I am. I've talked to other people, and I'm thinking about doing a live, a live forum just like this with my parents. And I know many of you already do that. So that's one thing that people are considering. Live streaming, we just talked about. And most of us are like, I'm open to ideas. So I'm hoping this will give you some ideas, and I will probably put together a blog or something that can address some of these. And as we continue and have some open forums, we can address some of these ideas too. So what's your preferred way of meeting? 56% of us were in person, 11% virtually. And now, a lot of times it was a combination. But now we're all going virtual. Some are doing it by phone. I was thinking about this morning. There's nothing wrong with a good old phone call. And, there's certain benefits. You're not worried about seeing, when you're doing virtual, you have to set limits. And you have to set, policies, some etiquette. And that could be a whole thing about, do you talk with the students in their bedrooms? How do they have to be clothed when you're looking, when you're sharing? What do you have to be doing? So those are all other things. So these are all issues that we're dealing with as we're meeting with students in our environment, trying to market and build our practice. Those are all big issues. So lots of ideas, lots of opportunities, and just knowing what some other people are thinking about, I think, can be really helpful. So let me turn it back over, Jen, to you in terms of which questions have popped up at the top. As we've got a few minutes, and I can go a few minutes more. We can probably take about 10 minutes. And those of you that have to drop off at the top of the hour, just know we'll have this recorded and have it available to you. And watch your email box for links to this recording. Also, while you're looking at the questions, I want to share one thing. I want to pull up our website. I have posted on the Guided Path website. If you go to guidedpath.net and you go to blogs and go under Cyndy's blog, here's the counseling resources for counselors, advisors. So I've put up together, this is after our webinar last week. So if you haven't seen this yet, please take a look. Lots of links, articles about talking to your students, COVID-19 resources, things from NACAC. I've got a list of all the conferences that have been canceled so far. And just tried to put as many resources here for you, links, so you just have them in one place. The other thing that we've done is put information about testing here, and we'll continue to update this. We get a lot of questions in our support email about how do I update this information in Guided Path. But, you know, ACT, April 4th test has been rescheduled to June 13th, SAT, AP, just this week, the IB was canceled. So, you know, lots of balls to keep floating in the air. But those are both blogs. I've also been working on information on professional virtual platforms like this, like Zoom or webinars or things like that. Calendars, we talked about that. Did some comparison. So in another follow-up forum, I can talk about using some of the technology tools that might help you build your practice and you know, reach a wider audience. So go to guidedpath.net, go to blogs, go to Cyndy's blog and Features blog, and you'll see the SAT and the links to just general information. I mean, now NACAC has a school closure document, just all sorts of things that can be at your fingertips to help you keep track of this. So, Jen, back to you. Is there any other questions that that have risen to the top?
Well, we did have a few questions related to business practices in the beginning about potentially lowering costs of your services as an advisor, and how would you determine how to best discount your counseling prices for families, and then also just any kind of creative ideas about how people are keeping their own businesses going when families are really feeling financially uncertain and maybe a bit worried about whether or not they should actually be hiring an IEC.
Yeah, and we're all facing that right now. And I will share some of my thoughts, and I would encourage all of you, and we have almost 100 people who have joined us today. If you've been experimenting or trying some new things, just send me an email, Cyndy, CYNDY, at guidedpath.net, and I'll put together a list, and we'll just create a resource that we can share, and I'll make it anonymous, but you know, we can help each other. But I think this goes back to you know, who we are and what we offer. First of all, offering payment plans and extending payment plans is going to go a huge way toward being able to give people comfort. Don't worry about pay me right now. We'll just put it on hold and we'll pick it up later. I have had great success doing that. I've had families who, I live in the Central Valley. You know, I have farmers. I have, you know, people in ag. I have people who have their own small business. You know, things go up, things go down. And I've learned to become flexible with that. It's like, okay, well, everybody's put on a payment plan. I very rarely take all my money up front. So they're all mostly on a payment plan. And then we just do an automatic withdrawal. And if something happens, then, you know, I can put them on pause, and I've had to do that. And I've had people paying me clear through the freshman or even later year of their students in college. So being flexible, I think, really will help alleviate some of those concerns and pressures for, oh, I can't pay you. You could emphasize how you're bringing more value, that your counselors aren't as accessible right now. And so you're going to be the one that's going to be on the front line helping them and supporting not only them, but their school-based counselors. So you can actually talk to how much more value you're bringing than even before. So I think that's another talking point, that if you think about it and drop in your own mind and have that, when you talk to families and parents, you'll have that argument ready, that position ready, and it'll make sense to them. And so, understanding and helping families to understand that you're going to bring even more value to them for what they're paying you is important. The third point I would make is, shifting the paradigm. I talked about this a little bit last week, but we're not here to help our students get into college or conversely get out of high school. We're here to help them, be successful and transition to college. So I've always positioned my practice as helping students through their freshman year. So I tell my families that, I'm here to help you and support you through your freshman year. So then when the student gets to college and needs their resume that they worked on as a high school, I have that available. They need help picking out their meal plans or their housing, we're available. What classes should they register for after, their first semester? When they come back for Thanksgiving, we're available. We even include helping them with their financial aid in terms of, sitting down and working with them on the financial aid in their freshman year, because our services go through the freshman year. Not everybody takes advantage of that, and that's okay, but we make it available. So if you shift the paradigm, said, I'm just here to help you with applications, I'm just here to help you with your college lists, then that's where they're going to be thinking, and that's the mindset they're going to be in. Create a growth mindset instead of that limited mindset. And if you're communicating that to them, then that should help. But some people are going to be financially, like all of a sudden they had 2 incomes, now they have 1, or, things like that. So you have to be flexible. I wouldn't set a precedent for reducing fees or refunding money unless there's a really good reason, as stated on a case-by-case basis. Some people might want to run a special right now just to help promote business. That's a different marketing decision. But in terms of working with students that you already have under contract, thinking about ways to help enhance what you offer so that they have that comfort level and just knowing that they can reach you. That's where lines of communication are so important, because if they know they can text you, 10 o'clock at night, I'm not advocating that, but just that they can reach you, that'll make it key. So I think there are great ways to do that. So I hope that gives people some ideas and answers that question. So I see we're already past an hour. It goes by way faster, and there are lots of great questions. Any other final question that we should address, Jen? I'm going to turn it back to you for a minute.
There are quite a few.
We've got 25 questions.
Yeah, other questions that we haven't gotten to. One person said, which are some favorite virtual tour sites? And I just wanted to point out that Guided Path has YouVisit tours. We also have liked University TV in the past, so we can add those resources to a follow-up email. But certainly colleges will all be developing their own versions of virtual tours. So I think just checking those college websites is another great place to keep, some online content for students who can't do visits. So,
Yeah, I agree. So we will go through the questions. This was our very first time of doing this. And, we were expecting like 10 or 12 people. So we're so glad you joined us, though. And we know we all have these questions, and just knowing that you're in this together, we're all in this together. None of us have any answers, and we're just trying to pedal as fast as we can. I hope that brings some calmness to your world on this Friday. We will go through this. We'll probably be posting more blogs and more information, and be watching your email for future invitations to workshops and things, more forums. We will keep in touch with you and take the opportunity to really go through this together. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do, for all you provide, and the very real life-changing impact that you have on students and families. And speaking as a counselor and as a parent and as a grandparent, I know the work that we do is vital. And thank you for that. Please be safe. I hope your families are safe. I hope your community is, everybody is pulling together and doing what we need to. This is not an individual country or region's issue. This is a global issue. And we need to address this globally and work together. And I'm so enheartened to see that happen. And whatever we can do to help you, we are here to help. So I'm going to sign off for now. And thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking with you. We do have a YouTube channel as well. So this and last week's webinar on our YouTube channel. So, seek that out. And that link is available as well. So any other things that we can do, don't hesitate to send us some suggestions and ideas, comments, criticisms. We're open to them all. So thank you. Take care. And until the next time, we'll be in touch.